Welcome to session 2 of the Q&A Monday today. I think there might be a new person here. Feel free to type your questions in the chat. Hopefully you see the chat icon. And don't worry, I'm not going to read your name out loud with the question. I'll read it anonymously. If you feel confident to use your voice and you want to speak and you don't mind if your voice is in the YouTube recording, you're welcome to also let me know that you want to speak. You can use your headset or a microphone. Hi. Yeah, you're welcome to speak. If you have a question you'd like to use your voice, just keep in mind that your voice will be in the YouTube recording afterward. But if you want to be totally anonymous, then you can just write your question there in the chat box. Okay, you have a lot of questions. Right now your mind is slightly blank. That's okay. That happens to me too. Yeah, that's okay. Usually like the first 10 minutes or so, people are also more nervous and kind of get started a little slow, and then it really starts moving as we get kind of into the swing of things. I'm going to go ahead and talk about, I got a question in an email. Somebody wanted me to ask, they can't attend live. So I'm just going to kind of riff on this a little. That way they can listen to it later. And it's probably a topic a lot of people have gotten into, and that is sex and the narcissist. You know, it could be the narcissist, could be the psychopath, sociopath, could also be the borderline, but basically the cluster B in general. And I think the most important thing to recognize is that sex for them is almost never about sex. It's about power and control. And so giving sex or not giving sex, receiving sex, not receiving sex, being available, not being available, sexing around with other people, you know, putting someone down for something about, you know, their sex life, shaming people, you know, for their sex life, shaming their partner when their partner asks for sex and they're like, all you ever think about is sex, or, you know, shaming the person who doesn't want to have sex, you know, in the case of like marital rape, for example, when a husband will force sex on his wife, assuming that it's her wifely duty, you know, she didn't want to have sex, then sex is never about just the sex. For them, it's really about the control and the power. And I think her question, if I understood it correctly, her question was something like, you know, can a narcissist have sex with someone that they're not really attracted to? Yeah. This is going to be sharing a little bit of my own information, and I hope it's not TMI, too much information, but I dated this guy for like 2 years, many years ago. And, you know, something about the sex is like, it was always something. I could tell there was some kind of like control thing. And then once we finally moved in together, like 2 years down the road, you know, it finally came out, because it was like, you know, I would go to bed and he wouldn't go to bed with me. He would stay up till like 4 o'clock in the morning. Finally came to understand that he was staying up, jerking off to porn after I'd gone to bed. But then I came to understand that the porn that he was watching was what they call tranny porn, or chicks with dicks. And so essentially, you know, it was like, it looks like a woman, but she has the male parts, although she might have breasts and looks very femininely. And so essentially he was watching this kind of porn instead of having sex with me, and got to this point where I realized, like, no wonder I feel like he hates me, because I don't have one of those, and I'm never gonna have one of those. So I'm never gonna be what he wants sexually. So why is he with me? You know, and this guy, like, I really felt like he hated me. And so maybe he wasn't attracted to me at all. You know, maybe it was more about the control and the power. And that's why, you know, he would withhold and give it when he wanted to. But clearly I wasn't like the object of his sexual desire, you know, and sometimes he would do it just because, you know, but I think it was predominantly about, you know, the power and the control. And so to answer her question, yeah, I definitely do think that, you know, because it's about the power and the control, you know, it doesn't have to be that they're always attracted to the person. And she also mentioned that, if I remember correctly, there wasn't a lot of idealization in the beginning of her relationship. And that's really interesting, because I've heard this from a couple other people, and they said there was no love bombing, there was no idealization, it was pure sex. And I said, okay, so, you know, the main red flag of the narcissist being the flattery, right? When you meet them, they're flattering you, and they really want you to give that back to them because that's what they would like to have too. But then there are the ones who don't do that, and it's just about the sex, and they jump in with the sex, and maybe the sex is great at first, or seems to be, and then over time it becomes much more obvious, the power and the control issue. And maybe the sex even escalates into things like BDSM and becomes, a lot more of like, the bondage, discipline, sadomasochism sort of realm, because that's really just a sexualization of the power and control issues. So I definitely think that that it's used as power and control. It could happen to be that the person is not at all attracted to the other person. It could be that they are attracted. It could be that even when they are attracted and do want to have sex, that just because, the target or the victim wants it, they'll deny them. They'll withhold the sex just because. Sometimes this can go on in marriages too. A person withholds sex for months or years, just because they don't want to give that to their partner, and so then you see some other extremes where you see some narcissists who are so sex driven, like, they're always having affairs, they're having sex with multiple people, maybe they're openly living, a polyamorous lifestyle. Not saying everybody who lives a polyamorous lifestyle is a narcissist, though I have seen quite a lot of narcissists who are into the polyamorous lifestyle. Some of them are very open about it. Usually those are the overt narcs. The covert narcs are usually the ones who are having multiple affairs behind the back of their spouse or partner. So, in that initial state, if a person sees like there isn't a lot of flattery, it's just the sex, that could also be, it could be just like, it could be a sign of borderline. It could be a sign of narcissism. It could be a sign of sociopathy. It could possibly be anywhere, I think on that continuum. But when it just starts with the sex, like that is their form of flattery. That is their form of love bombing. And why? Well, maybe it's about their thing. Maybe it's about what they think they're reading in the target. Maybe they feel like their target really wants to feel intimately connected with someone else. And, because the narcissist and pretty much anybody on that cluster B, continuum, they're incapable of true intimacy. They're incapable of true intimacy. So having sex with them, I heard this great YouTube channel, gosh, what is her name? Ashley Burgess. Ashley Burgess, I think that's the name of her channel too. And she did one on like, how do you know you're having sex with a borderline? And she talks about this and, how they use it for control, whether they're withholding or giving out. And what was the point that she was making in there? Oh, it just went blank. Maybe it'll come back to me. This is a really great video. I recommend checking her out. She has really extensive knowledge on the borderlines in particular, on the borderline abuse and what that looks like in relationships, and how they work with sex. But I think that when a person, sees just the sex as the flattery, maybe it's that the abuser is honing in on that need. Oh, that was it. The need for the person to have intimacy. So if you have no other intimate connection with this manipulative person, like no form of true emotional intimacy, if you're having sex and you're having a lot of sex, you can mistake that for intimacy. And that's what she was saying. And that's what she was saying too, like afterward, I don't know if you've seen in online forums, a lot of people will talk about how, after the narcissist, sex is never the same with anybody else and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, of course it's not, because, when you're in that relationship and you have no other intimacy, you put so much on the sex, like so much emphasis, so much weight on the sex, because it's the only seeming intimacy that you have, even though there's no real connection. Like it's just a physical connection. There's no true, deeper, intimate connection. Like you might perceive that, you might be superimposing that and wishing that that was there, but for them, it's not there because they're incapable of that. So I recommend checking out her video. It had some really great insight on that. It looks like you guys are writing some stuff here. Let me catch up here. Okay, so someone says, that happened to me. Maybe not porn, but he would come to bed so late, then expect me to stay up or wake up to have sex. I had to wake up early and he never had to. He didn't give a crap. Then he would say, oh, you don't love me. It was more like, no, I need to sleep so bad. He would gamble and whatnot until late at night. Yeah, so that's a couple things kind of clumped together. There's the sex control thing where he was trying to, get you to stay up late and wake you up to give him what he wanted. And there's also the sleep deprivation thing. And that's a real big thing with narcissists. They love to sleep deprive the targets, because if you're sleep deprived and you're exhausted, you're not thinking well, you're not thinking clearly, you don't have a lot of energy, you're more likely to give in, appease them, just to make it simple, and just not being able to see, right? So like if they sleep deprive you and then they attack you, you tend to go into the self-defense versus examining their behavior, and their behavior being the abuse, which is the actual problem, versus your reaction, And so then he'll manipulate you and say things like you said, you don't love me, because you won't put out, when really you just needed to sleep, and you have every right to say that you need to sleep, that you don't want to have sex, and anybody who is trying to convince you that, you're not good enough, you don't love them enough, you're not attractive enough, you're not sexy enough, whatever enough, because you don't want to have sex with them, that's not a person that you want to be with. That's a dangerous situation. That situation can get to the point where it starts to feel like rape. I've gotten a lot of messages from a lot of women, men too, but mostly women, who talk about that, how confusing it was for them too. And even afterward, they're writing me and they're like, so I don't know, it kind of felt like rape. Was that rape? Yeah. If it feels like rape, it was rape. They pushed you into doing something that you didn't want to do. And, if you have a history of sexual abuse, if you have a history, of this happening starting in childhood or earlier in adulthood, then you're more likely to fall into that trap. I found myself in that trap many times because of the childhood molestation that happened to me. And, that is a danger. If you've been through sexual abuse, that you're more susceptible to that. You're more susceptible to being manipulated around sex. And so you always want to be cautious of that, and always remember that your sex is your sex. And, you have the right to decide if you want to share that with someone or not. And the responsibility is on each of us now with education and awareness, and to recognize when it doesn't feel healthy, when the sex isn't healthy. And when it's just a physical connection, probably not healthy. You might as well be masturbating if you just want the physical sensations, because that's a lot safer. You don't run the risk of STDs. You don't run the risk of pregnancy. God forbid you should get pregnant from a narcissist, like somebody that you're not even like married to or even thinking about having a relationship, because this person isn't right for you. And then you get pregnant. That's a real bad situation, and then on top of that, like the spiritual, psychic, emotional thing, where when you have sex with someone, like you are creating a level of interaction and connection that's even beyond any other kind of human connection. It's the additional dimension that we don't share with everyone. And you're creating energetic filaments of light that are connecting you to that other person. And they'll forever connect you to that person until you cut these cords, and then that can cause a lot of havoc. If you're getting a lot of this energy transferred back and forth from that person, you don't understand why, or you still feel like so attached to them and you don't understand why, or you're still so attached to the idea of, how amazing the sex was, because again, it got warped in your mind. The sex was just, you assumed that it was the intimacy. Maybe it was the closest thing you had to intimacy with that person. So it got really warped, and Ashley mentions in her video, she's like, imagine you live far away or something, and all you had was a phone call to connect with that person. And so you would look forward to that phone call every day or every week or however often you could get that phone call privilege, and you guys would talk on the phone. And so how much weight would you assign to those phone calls? A lot. Those phone calls were like the whole core of the intimacy of your relationship at a distance, surviving on phone calls. So replace that with sex and you understand what's happening. And I think that's really one of the dangers, is not understanding your right to say no, not understanding that sex isn't intimacy. The physical sex is just physical sex. And it doesn't mean that there's any kind of emotional connection. And, I think the healthiest form of sexuality is when there is a deeper emotional connection, at the very least, two human beings who care about one another. It doesn't have to be you're in love necessarily, but you at least have to care about one another and each other's well-being, and that whole friends with benefits thing. Yeah, sometimes that can work out for a short period of time, but it gets complicated. Feelings get created, feelings happen, more so usually for the women. Apparently there's a biological reason for that. During orgasm, oxytocin is released. Oxytocin is the bonding, the trust hormone. And why doesn't it happen to men? Well, it is released in men too. It's just that the testosterone overrides, cancels out the oxytocin. So a man after an orgasm is in a very different place than a woman after an orgasm, So that's why, a woman can have sex with somebody and then she starts to have feelings for that person. So that could be dangerous if that person is just a fuck buddy, or worse yet, you don't even know that. Maybe you think that person cares about you, or maybe you think something is developing and they just see it as just sex. So I really do urge a lot of, I guess a lot of caution around sex, and, being present with yourself too, and recognizing your own needs, your own feelings, your own experiences, your reality, validating all of that, and not being embarrassed or ashamed or guilty to express those needs and feelings and desires, and if you're with a partner who's judging you and shutting you down or shaming you or forcing you, none of those are healthy situations. Let me get caught up here. Someone says they love to deprive us of sleep. Somatic narc. Yeah, the sleep deprivation is huge. I can't imagine having sex with anyone else, which terrifies me. I tried to stay up. Sometimes I would just roll over and go, okay, I guess. I don't want you to think I don't love you. Good point. That was the only intimacy I knew with him. Yeah. So if I understand what you're saying, it's almost like you can't imagine sharing a sexual connection with another person after sharing it with this person. And a lot of people feel like that afterward, like they could never share that part of them again, or it could never be that good, or nobody else will ever understand their body and be able to please them like that person. And I just got to say, don't worry about any of that. That's just a bunch of illusion that gets created in the mind, like a big distortion, a real big distortion. And you can have really amazing sex with somebody that you don't plan on spending a lifetime or even a long time with. But sometimes you can have sex with someone and you entering that knowing that it's just for sex, and it's still not really fulfilling, because if you're a person, for me, I have to feel like an emotional connection. I need to develop an emotional connection with someone to really even connect with my sexuality, to be able to really engage in that experience. I could be there and I could do it and I've done it, but it's not, I don't get in touch with it. I don't really enjoy it. I can't really connect. You rarely can even have an orgasm like that. So, I think it's most important to cultivate a deeper emotional, intimate connection with the person before going in that direction, because it's also really awkward. You just meet somebody, you just have sex. It feels awkward, and then it feels awkward later. And, maybe you end up having sex with somebody that you would never have had sex with if you had waited a few more weeks or another month getting to know them, and you'd be like, yeah, not so much, And the whole thing with the chemistry, when we talk about, oh, it could never be the same, or I just couldn't imagine sharing my bed with someone else, whatever, that chemistry. And, we tend to look at chemistry as a positive thing. And it is to a certain degree, but that kind of chemistry that you might have had at the beginning, to anybody who's listening to this, that kind of chemistry that you might have had at the beginning, where it was just bam, fireworks. There was intense sexual attraction. You couldn't wait just to rip each other's clothes off. And then that just kind of blew out of the water really quickly. It turned out to be really bad situation often, or just fizzled out really quickly. In my experience now, I'm coming to understand that that kind of like all out fireworks chemistry at the very beginning is not a good sign. In fact, this is just my spiritual belief, but I think it's more of like a karmic connection, like maybe another soul that we've known. Maybe there's, past karma that we're working out again now. And so we're running into each other, and there is a recognition there, and definitely know each other, definitely shared this sort of experience together, and the intense chemistry is there, but then so is the karma. And, the whole soulmate kind of thing versus the twin flame kind of thing, and the soulmate kind of thing often just being a karmic connection from the past that you're trying to resolve something with now. And then you both end up going separate ways because you get each other unstuck from whatever karmic thing from the past that was still holding you together. So, I noticed like at the beginning now, if that all out intense chemistry is there, that's probably not the right person. Because it's probably deceiving. And I truly believe that like a deeper human connection, a deeper emotional, spiritual connection, as the foundation for the physical connection, it's about time. You spend time with people and you develop the sense of intimacy and connection. And sometimes people feel familiar, like you've known them before. You just feel really comfortable sharing and talking about things, some sort of sense of familiarity. But getting to know people over a period of time, I think, is really a safer, healthier way to go. And then, so the red flags come out, before you get in too deep. And, once you've taken it to that level of sex and, before actually having sexual intercourse, like you could be fooling around and doing other things, it's even still a different level of connection than actual sexual intercourse. Actual sexual intercourse, it creates those deeper connections. And then when you split up and you break up from that person, like it literally feels like flesh ripping apart, and it's so much harder to leave. And so that's why I urge caution in the realm of sex. Okay, catch up here. Okay, someone says, it's a year now for me, thank God, and I'm a lot happier. Speaking about sex, I remember he asked me once if he could blindfold me. I said no, I felt insecure. Fast forward the last time we were together, he insulted me in my underwear. I didn't know at the time that he was into porn, hoes, and cheating. So yes, he had sex with me and he didn't feel anything for me. I was so upset when I found out, and then I went to get checked out in case he gave me something. I've looked over everything this past year, and I can say I have no good memories of my years with him. He really is a sick creature, and we are all better off without them. He has no morals, no self-respect, and he got worse. He thinks he's the victim, and he can't stand that. I now have support, and I'm much happier without him. At least I can now sleep at night and get up feeling refreshed. Exactly. Good on you for saying no. When he asked you to do something that was outside of your comfort zone and you said no because you didn't feel good, you didn't want to do that. And, sure, he probably shamed you and humiliated you for that, or, attacked you in your underwear verbally. Next time, whatever it is, because they'll do that when you don't give them what they want. But good on you for standing up and saying, no, I don't want that, because it's hard in the moment, especially those of us who developed those people pleasing, qualities. Sometimes it can be really hard to say no, because you want to please the other person. You want to be attractive to the person. You want them to stay interested in you and not go somewhere else. But that, he was going to go somewhere else there anyways, because that's just who he is. And thankfully you realize that, someone says to her, I'm sorry you went through that. Glad to hear you can sleep at night. Same here. I sleep very well now. Yeah. It's like after these relationships, it's like you've never been happier to have your bed to yourself, right? Like maybe before that you were lonely and you're wishing you could share your bed with someone. And then that whole turmoil came and went. And then you're like, oh God, I get the whole bed, like all to myself. Like, I don't want to give that up. Yeah, that can happen. Someone says here, sex for me is something I want to share with someone I love. He really had me duped, and it hurt so much when I came to realize he wasn't even attracted to me or my body. He preferred his online hoes. Yeah, it's really devastating when you realize, that they're not attracted to you, or they're shaming you for something, whether it's your physicality or your sexuality in general, or your sexual openness, and there will always be something. If someone is criticizing and making you feel ashamed or guilty about anything to do with sex, you really got to pay attention, and it can be like, a very sensitive area for people, talking about what you want, talking about what you enjoy, talking about what pleases you, and being able to express that and not feel guilty for having those desires, or not feel guilty about saying, I would really like it if you could do a little bit of this, and so, really like trusting yourself and knowing that if you're in a healthy relationship, you should be able to talk openly about sex. And sometimes it's easier to do it in the moment. Sometimes people are more sensitive afterward. If you talk about it and wait till afterwards, sometimes it's better in the moment to go, I like that, do that more, or I don't like that, please don't do that. Can you do this instead? Sometimes it's a lot easier in the moment. Big love out to you guys, but I've found sometimes guys' egos get a lot less bruised if you talk to them during the act, right? Because it's a big deal to a lot of guys, sexual performance. And sometimes if you talk to them afterwards, they could feel like really self-conscious, and maybe it's not a narcissist at all. Like maybe it's a guy who really wants to please you, and he's just a little, ashamed or embarrassed, about something. And so sometimes it's just easier to say it in the moment, and even trying to make something sexy out of it, versus waiting until after, like, hey, I was wondering if we can talk about sex, that could feel almost threatening to somebody, to women too, because then it could feel like, like somebody is like saying you're not good enough, you don't put out good enough, whatever, you don't do good enough. So sometimes it is easier to talk in the moment. Someone says here, yeah, maybe it's the familiarity. I'm 3 weeks, no contact, so it's very new to me. Yeah, that's real recent. Good job on no contact. Good job on establishing that. That's really hard to do, and you're definitely doing the right thing. That is the corner pinpoint upon which everything else, surrounds in this healing and recovery journey, is that no contact. That's where your power is. Breaking that no contact, you would see if you did it, and I hope that you don't, but if you did, you would see very quickly how you lose your power instantly. You feel like horrible, just absolutely horrible. Even if they don't say something horrible, just because of the way that interaction is going to go, or even just the way your body viscerally is going to respond. So stick with the no contact. That's great. Yeah. So 3 weeks is kind of new. And so, yeah, at this point, don't beat yourself up. If you just feel like you can never be with someone else, just heed the words, even though you don't feel it right now, the words that it's not always going to feel that way. It's just very recent, like very, very recent. And so you're still feeling very attached. And I recommend this is a good time, to start doing those energetic cord cutting exercises. If you believe in that at all, or have any sense of some sort of connection energetically to that person, and you can do this in your own way. This is just what I do, but I sit in a meditation. Sometimes I like to lay down. Sometimes I like to listen to solfeggio frequencies or binaural beats, which entrains my brain waves in ways that helps me reach into like the subconscious, layers of things. And I visualize the energetic cords of connection that I have with that person. And they can be connected to the heart. They can be connected to the mind. They can be connected to your womb. If you're a woman, they can be connected to your sex organs if you're a man. And envisioning these cords of connections, like see it in your mind and like watch, this light of connection, and then use whatever tool works for you. For me, I like to imagine a sword, like Archangel Michael's sword. And, I envision just severing those energetic cords and then sealing and filling that hole, that wound, that opening where that cord was once attached, with love, with the infinite love of Creator, with the love of all that is, the love and light of the universe, with God's love, however feels comfortable to you, whatever fits within, your spiritual or religious framework. But I do really think that there's something tangible to these energetic cords. You might even notice, as soon as you cut them off, how that person pops up on the radar. Maybe they hoover you, or something happens, some random synchronicity where they try to contact you, or something about them shows up in your life. And usually it's them trying to contact, because they can sense, even if it's like unconsciously, like they don't know it, but they sense at some level they're not as connected. So they're going to try to reinitiate that contact. So I think it's really good to cut those off. Someone says, gosh, 3 weeks is raw. Yes, but you will get there. I'm 1 year and it was tough, but you have support. My heart goes out to you. Yeah. The first part is the hardest part. Like she says, she uses this word raw, and that is exactly the word. Like, it feels so raw. The wounds, your heart, everything just feels so raw at that stage. And good job on you for doing the work, because it's really hard, and you will get there, and it does get easier. And, as time and distance go on, it becomes a lot lighter. It's not going to be like this forever. So there is hope. And she says, thank you to that person. I never thought I could do it. I surprise myself every day. Yeah, that's the amazing thing about the recovery, is you really get in touch with your own resilience, your ability to heal yourself, your ability to come back, your ability to get back up after you get knocked down. And that's what recovery is, right? It's being able to stand back up after you get knocked down in life. And there's always going to be things that knock us down, right? And it just so happens that those of us who've been through narcissistic abuse have been through a hell of a lot. And you survived, which means you are strong, you are brave, and you're getting back up, that kind of strength now you're taking forward in your life. And maybe you didn't even realize just how strong you were until that happened, and until you started pulling yourself back up. And maybe it's not until a year from now, 3 years from now, when you look back and you're like, wow, how far I came, wow, how much strength. And it will happen. Let's see. Someone says, yes, true about no contact. I did it. And get the book Psychopath Free by Jackson Mackenzie. Yeah, that is a great book. To anyone who hasn't read that yet, I know I say it a lot, I repeat it a lot, but it's a really wonderful book. It's a sanity saver to really understand the overall big picture patterns of narcissistic abuse. It's like your whole life just makes sense. If this is something you've been surrounded with all your life, like starting at home, everything starts to make sense. Even if you've just been through one of these relationships and it was just like such a mind screw that like you couldn't even understand what happened. And then you read this book and it's like, wow, that whole relationship makes sense. Someone says, I think of stupid reasons to contact him too. I left a cactus at his house and kept thinking about that stupid cactus and how I wanted to get it. And then I told myself, no, it's a cactus. Your well-being is more important. Amen. Amen. Sometimes we just got to cut our losses and run. Sometimes you lose a lot more than a cactus, and yeah, you can buy another cactus. You can find another plant and it's not going to be contaminated with his energy and everything. And yeah, your well-being is significantly more important than going back for anything, clothing. So people lose clothing or things like that. That's just a material thing, and you get out of there with your health, with your sanity, you're already winning. Someone says here, oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. For me, it became my Bible. It helped me so much. Someone says, I think the cactus is just a symbol of reconnecting with him, and I know I cannot. Yeah, sometimes your subconscious plays tricks on you like that. It kind of like it convinces you that you need to go get this or that, but really it's just like this like craving to reconnect with him. And you're right, that's not going to go well. It's not going to help you. It's not going to lead you any further in your self-healing journey. It's just going to set you back further and you have to dig out again. So you're exactly right. Not to go back for that. That's good. Someone says here, absolutely. I feel we gave enough chances to them. And all he ever wanted me for was to hurt me more, because it always got worse. I was so devastated. I thought he would eventually wise up, but no, they never do. Yeah. I think every survivor, right, just hopes they're going to wake up, the abuser's going to wake up and realize what they're doing and have this big epiphany and change their ways. We all hoped that, but they just don't. They don't. They might tell you over and over how hard they're going to try. They might even say how sorry they are. They might even say they're sorry and not blame you or someone else, but they just don't change their actions. And that's how if there is any hope for that person to change, where do you see that hope? In the self-responsibility. When you see the person taking accountability for their actions, accountability for what they did, accountability for what they did wrong, accountability for how they hurt you, and then working actively to change those things. If the person is still blaming other people, if the person is blaming other life circumstances, if, the person just has other excuses for why he or she is the way they are, or, like the borderlines, for example, they can be tricky because they'll say things like, you just don't know how hard it is to be me. It's just so hard to be me. Boo-hoo. It's hard to be everybody. I don't doubt it's really, really hard to have that kind of toxicity, that kind of poison inside, but you've got to do something about that. That's on the adult, as an adult, to do something about it. If you want to get better, you will seek help. If you want to get better, you're going to make right what you did wrong, but if you're just talking about, how hard it is to be you and the pity me and the poor me, that person's not going to get better. That person's not going to make different choices, because it is a choice. And that's the hard thing for every survivor to get in their head and their heart, is that those people are actively choosing to do that. They know what they're doing. They know they're hurting other people. They're actively, consciously choosing to manipulate and then lie about it or justify about it, why they should get away with it. And those are just dangerous people to be around, because that is how they are across the board in their life. They might pick particular people that they idealize and treat as like a golden child. It might be, a person at work or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a kid of theirs, but they'll do that kind of thing. And it's usually because they want something from that person, or somehow they see that person as an extension of themselves, and they'll build them up, but eventually they'll smash them down, especially if that person ever sets boundaries or rebels. So, someone asked here, I have to ask, is it typical to still have hope even though you really don't want to be back in that crap? I am strong in the no contact, but still have odd amount of hope. I'm hoping it will dissipate over time. Here's the thing. And, that hope is the danger for every survivor who leaves. That hope is what every narcissist, every psychopath, every sociopath is counting on. They're counting on the fact that hope dies last, that if there's still a shred of hope, they could possibly manipulate you again. And it may not be tomorrow. It may not be this week. It may not be this month. It may not be this year. It could be years down the road. If they still believe there's a shred of hope inside of you that they've changed or that they can change, they will take advantage of that. They will exploit that hope. So the hope is dangerous. The hope is actually very dangerous. And I know it's really hard to accept that, because, if you're a hopeful person, if you're an optimistic person, right, it's that's a good philosophy to have. It's just that there are some people who would take advantage of that. There's a lot of people who will take advantage of that. And it's not safe to apply that hope to their situation. And how do you know? How do you know that person isn't going to change? They repeat their behavior. They've done it 2-3 times. That's all you need to know. They don't have to do it 100 times. They do it 2 or 3 times. You already know that's who they are. That's how they are. That's how they choose to treat people. That is their personality, their sense of identity, their sense of self. It's based around manipulating people to get what they want. So having hope in that person is dangerous. And I know it's really hard to accept that. And yeah, it gets easier for that hope to dissipate over time, but part of it involves work. And that inner work is accepting and noticing that person didn't change, no matter what they said, no matter how much they said they were sorry, how much they said they wanted to change, how much they wanted to do better. What did their actions say? Right? And you look at the action, and the action always reveals them. And when you can really accept that, you can mourn the loss of that hope. You can mourn the loss of that idea. Did someone want to add something? I hear
Yeah, I did want to say something.
Hi.
Hi. To the person that just asked that question, I was thinking that it's, I don't know if it's the one that says that she's only been away for 3 weeks, but the more you listen to these shows and the more you watch all these videos and read the comments and realize that everyone is telling the same story over and over and over again, and then you come to realize that everything they did was a lie, everything, and not just, off the top of their head or offhanded, like one like stand back and says, oh, it's kind of offhanded. I don't believe that. It's planned. They plan to hurt you. They think about it, and they're going to do it again, and also the enjoyment they get from it.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's exactly true. Someone else wrote here, hope dies last. Give yourself time. Yeah. Someone else said here too, last chance was a so-called new beginning, and I fell for it. But at the time, I didn't know about narcs. His words and action never matched. Couples don't have secrets from each other. He acted like a single guy. He disrespected me so many times, not caring that he hurt me. He loved to see me cry. But now I get it. He's sadistic. That person added in too, that happened to me too. I would be so sad, bawling my eyes out. He'd look at me in a straight face with no emotion and say nothing. I eventually felt numb and stupid. Yeah, that sounds like a definite degree of sadism, enjoying the fact that you're suffering. That is not a good situation. Not a good situation. And I agree with the fact that it takes time sometimes, but also you still have to do the work of acceptance, and when you can accept the fact that the actions prove that person, then it gets easier to accept that they'll never change, Do you want to add something more? I think I still hear the audio.
Well, it was something about with my ex-boyfriend. Yeah, it was uncomfortable to be around him, and he I was telling you last week about my plant dying. You said it was sucking the life force energy out and all this, and of course I totally believe that. But with my stepfather, who I believe was more of a psychopath, probably, and if you're a psychopath, I guess you're a narcissist too. And also he was sadistic. But I don't know about. I mean, I guess he did the life out of everything in the house, but he also did something else. Whenever he would come, I mean, even like within 3 feet of me, he would like emanate this really, really bad energy that it just almost hurts. Do you know what that is? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I think I know what you're saying. So for me, how my body experiences it, this happened to me several times. Once with a teacher of mine who was abusing me, and he was attacking me, and I was very near to him in proximity. And even though I had my back to him, I was curled up into a fetal position, and he still kept going and going and going verbally at me. And I got to the point where I was so cold that like my bones hurt. Like I was so, like my organs, my everything was trembling inside. I couldn't find a shred of warmth. And I felt like he literally sucked out all of my life force energy. Now, of course, I had a boundary problem, right? I got to own that part of my responsibility, because somebody can't do that to me if I don't allow them to. But I definitely experienced that. That wasn't the only time. That happened again where I would just start to like shake and shiver. Like it wasn't even that cold, but I couldn't get warm. And, you know, maybe this kind of like a panic attack too, but I know what you're saying, where like they either emanate something or they're sucking energy. It's some kind of dynamic like that. It's,
It could have been that. And of course, I was a teenager also at the time, so I wasn't allowed to set boundaries. You know what I mean? Like wherever I was, he was allowed anywhere near me. But he did put off this energy that just hurt. Like a lot of people say when they're around narcissists, they have to walk on eggshells and things like that. I understand that. Like you're careful about what you say. You don't want to upset them. But he was coming around, not yelling at me, not touching me, not just his
it's
presence
present.
around me. I could feel the energy,
Yeah.
and it was painful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cause you're tuned into that, you know, you can feel that. It's like tangible.
I guess everybody did. I mean, we don't talk about it, but of course my mother, eventually just couldn't take it anymore and left. But there were other kids too, and I'm sure they felt it too. It was very miserable.
Right. You might have been more like psychically in tune with that. Other people might have like felt horrible. Maybe they didn't exactly identify it or recognize that there was a connection between him and that feeling. Um, you know, and something that I've noticed too is, you know, sexual abuse. I believe like sexual energy is psychic energy. It's the nature of energy in the universe. You know, you just imagine like everything, yin, yang, the atom, the masculine, the feminine, the attraction, the desire between, you know, particles in nature even. I believe sexual energy is psychic energy. And when a person is sexually abused young in childhood, it's like it awakens a psychic energy, like a strong psychic energy in that child. And as fucked up as that is, it's actually also a gift in a way that is the only thing, you know, maybe sometimes to extract from that experience positive is that the person generally has some kind of psychic awakening. They're in tune sometimes with things that other people aren't. And that might be a gift that comes out of those situations. It's something I noticed in myself. It's something I've noticed in a lot of people who have been through sexual abuse. They have like a strong, even if it's like a fascination with, you know, healing arts or something to do with something like that, with energy. Maybe they really are like an actual psychic, like they read people, they read cards, they read astrology, they read the body, you know. But yeah, I think that, you know, you might have been a lot more in touch with that feeling, you know, of his energy being around you, just his presence making you
But
feel
it
like
was
that.
something that he was putting out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of child abusers, uh, what they say, they groom children. They're nice to them and give them things and things like that. Well, he got a hold of me when I was 3, and he never did that. He immediately started abusing me. It was physical abuse until I was 11, and he would beat me all the time. And he was my stepfather, and I remember he was just the first person I remember. I was about 3, and he would take me in the room and he would beat me, and I would cry, and then he would come back out, and he'd say, "Why are you crying?" And I would say, "I don't know." Well, the reason I was crying, I remember why I was crying because my mother was sitting right there, and I wanted my mother, and she wasn't doing anything. And when I wouldn't stop crying, it just went on and on. He just kept taking me back and beating me and then bringing me out and saying, "Why are you crying?" And I wouldn't answer, and he just kept doing it. And my mother, she wouldn't do anything. So there was always fear. I always had fear of him.
Right. Right. I mean, he sounds like a total tyrant. I would,
Yeah, yeah. He was in the military for 20 years,
oh,
and also, I mean, I shouldn't say this because maybe it doesn't have anything to do with it, but he was German, and Germans to this day scare me. I don't know. I mean, he wasn't in the German army; he was in the American army. But I'm saying his ethnicity was German, and Germans scare me now.
yeah, it's
Even
probably
if
a
I don't
trigger.
know them, I don't even give them a chance. Like I'm German. Oh, and then I just fear runs through me.
Because it's a trigger now, because
Yeah,
if he were anything else, some other race or something, then that would be the trigger.
exactly.
Right.
It's because he was German. And, you're right. If he was something else, yeah.
Or it could be like a mustache. Like I get freaked out by mustaches. I call them molester stashes because I get triggered by that. And it's not like every guy who has a mustache is a bad guy. It's not true at all. I just have a thing about that. And we develop these triggers, and they're like unconscious triggers based on the
Yeah, because I have an attraction to a man with a mustache and a beard.
right. Yeah, it just depends on your personal experiences, and the different triggers that surrounded the trauma, like whatever that was for each person. And it's often not even a conscious thing. Like it's like a subconscious thing that happens. There's like an actual visceral response to the trigger.
Oh, I'll tell you something happened to me. I was away from my family, God, for like 20 years, and I came back for some reason, or I don't know. I just came back, and it happened that my stepbrother and me, we were at the table, and we were flipping through a photo album. It was my grandmother's photo album I had never seen before. So, and I just assumed there would not be any pictures of him in there because nobody liked him. And we're just looking through, and he turned the page, and there was a picture of him. And like the second I saw it, it felt like I just stuck my finger in an electrical socket. That it was like electricity ran through me. To my bones. It
Right.
scared me that bad. And I just ran out and didn't look. I wish now that I would have calmed down and then went back and looked at it again to see what my reaction would have been to see it. But it was just such a shock to see that, after so many years.
Right. Yeah. When your body has a reaction like that, there's still something very real, a very, very real visceral response to the trauma that person brought into your life. I'm so
And I
sorry.
think it would have helped me if I would have went in the other room and calmed down and then went back in, bracing myself for what I was going to see. And then I'd like to know how I would have felt then.
Versus it being like a shock. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because I wasn't expecting to see it. When I saw it, it was like I stuck my finger in a socket. The electricity just went off of my body, and I ran out, and that was it. I didn't look at it again, and I wish I would have came back, called after a few minutes, came back and looked at it again to see what my reaction would have been the second time around, being prepared, knowing what I was going to see. Maybe that would have helped me.
Right. Sometimes it can be helpful to come back to it later from a different mental space, emotional
But
space.
I'll never see it again. I don't have any pictures of it. I'll never see it again.
Right. You can still work with that in your mind. Like if you want to face this, and I'm not saying that you have to, because it could be too triggering, but if you feel ready someday, where like maybe you want to imagine him in your mind and imagine removing that charge, that emotional charge, like somehow in your mind, disempower him, put him in his underwear, like just something symbolically to you that's meaningful to you, and just disempower him in your mind so you can start to disactivate that strong emotional charge that's still there. Again, only if you feel really called to that, because for some people it's just better not to go there. It's just too traumatizing. But you did express that you kind of wish you would have gone back to that. So if you do want to create that, you can create that in your mind. Because remember, your mind can't tell the difference between like if you're actually looking at the picture or you're just imagining the picture. Your whole body is going to respond as if it were really happening. So you can practice that yourself.
Yeah, I don't really want to.
Yeah.
It's been many years. I tried to block a lot of it. But that picture, that I hadn't seen in so many years, it just was so real. It was just overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're having a physiological, visceral response to something, that is a sign there's some major trauma there,
Oh, let me say, I don't want to take up the whole conversation, but just one last thing. Okay, so last week, I had a busy day. I was planning a busy day, and I got ready. I was ready to go. I went out, and let me just tell you, I live in a security building, so you have to have a key to get in, and that's why my ex-boyfriend doesn't bother me. He can't get to me because he can't get in. But so I had this whole list of things I had to do, and I was going out to do them. And as I walked out the door, I just looked in the mailbox, and there was a Red Bull in there. Now, I don't drink Red Bull, but that was his drink. Red Bulls all the time. I was constantly buying Red Bulls. They're not cheap, you know. But yeah. So it was a Red Bull. I think that was like a message from him, like I was here or something like that. And I didn't even take it out, just by chance, like maybe somebody else put it in there, but I don't know anybody else around that drinks Red Bull like that. But I came back in the house, and I didn't go back out for a couple of days. I got nothing done. It was because I was afraid, am I going to go out? He's going to be sitting on the steps with, I didn't know what I was going to see.
It was in your personal mailbox?
Yes.
Wow.
He knows my mailbox. Now my mailbox, anybody can go in it. You can just, the mailman puts mail in. But
Right.
you put a Red Bull in my
Right. But that sounds
a $4 full Red Bull. People don't just leave laying around. You know what I mean? That was the message.
no, that was definitely a message. Like he could have gotten in behind one of your neighbors, just entered, the mailroom or whatever, like the initial, didn't go up to see you or something. Maybe he just left that there when one of your neighbors was coming in and out.
No, the mailbox is on the outside, so everybody has access to it. What I'm saying is, to get in my building, to get to me to my apartment, you have to have a key. Now, my neighbor knows, because he should. I mean, if I was him, I would be embarrassed to show my face around here again because all the he was always screaming, and my neighbors heard it, and he should be embarrassed. I don't know if I'm embarrassed, but they know not to let him in.
Good.
Like he knows that nobody's gonna let him in. But I'm thinking now the weather's getting warm. Like he'll come and sit on the steps outside, just waiting for me to come out. By chance that he might see me or something. He doesn't live in my neighborhood, but if he's got nothing to do one day, he could just come and sit there and like wait for me. And I'm paranoid when I go out. I'm not gonna see him.
Right. If this escalates, and you start to feel unsafe, you might want to pursue a protection order.
See that? Well, I guess he left a Red Bull in my, you can't care about that.
I mean, if he shows up, right? If he starts showing up on your doorstep like that, at that point, it's a different level. The shame is that, you can't prove the Red Bull thing. People could laugh at that or whatever. And that's the whole nature of the gaslighting, is to make the victim feel crazy, but if he starts physically showing up and stalking, at that point, I might escalate that and go get a protection order, because you have every right to live in peace. That's your place. And there's no reason that you should feel unsafe and worried that he's going to be there. He should not be showing up there.
Well, I want to do what you said was, like, if I were to go out, be busy, and I would be, and I always wear headphones. I listen to music and things. It just, in my mind, what I would do is really not even acknowledge him, not even a hello, nothing. Just keep walking. But if I know him, he would follow me. He just would. So I don't know.
How would I handle that situation would be like, so I got the headphones on, he's over there, I see him, I'm walking this way, say he follows me, say he's yelling, I don't hear him, I got my headphones on, I'm pretending I don't hear him over my headphones, and then say he grabs me, puts a hand on me, anything, I would turn around so fast and I would scream, get away. And I mean, I would be vicious about it, yell it loud enough that other people would start to notice, because they don't want other people paying attention. They don't want other people seeing what's going on. And, in his case, because he is the man, society, hopefully, in this situation is at least like recognizing that possibly you're the one in danger here. So I don't think that he's going to, take the chance to do something so brazen. But if he does and he grabs you or something like that, I would turn around and I would yell, just get away from me, and then walk away. And don't stay there, don't stay near him. but yell it and walk away. And if he follows you again, just start screaming like a mad woman until somebody else, starts seeing, starts witnessing, maybe intervenes. Or maybe he just runs away because like he's just afraid. And maybe this guy would never physically hurt you, but you have every right to your space, your privacy, your peace of mind. And if he's going to stalk you like that, then, you need to respond strongly like that. And then if that happens, I would definitely go get the protection order. I mean, at least.
Okay, can I tell you something?
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about he wanted a certain job, and I was like, well, if you have any, as long as you don't have any felonies. And he said, I have a class, I think he called it a class E felony. And he said, it's the lowest felony you can have. And I said, oh, well, what was that for? And he broke a restraining order 3 times. Like the girl took out a restraining order, he broke it. She took out another one, he broke it. She took out another one, he broke that one. And finally, he did 18 months in prison, in Rikers Island, now prison, for breaking the restraining order, which I think he might have done something physical to her, because he got 18 months in the actual Rikers Island. And then when he got out, part of him staying out was he didn't drink the whole time he was with me, but he said he worked a recovering alcoholic. And when he got finished with his 18 months in prison, he had to go to a 2-year inpatient rehab program and stay in that and finish that for 2 years in order not to go back to prison. So, he's done this before, and I don't think he wants to get in trouble again. But that's why I think he's playing games like with Red Bull and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's, maybe it just starts that easy. This guy already has priors like this. I was not aware of that. I would absolutely encourage you that if you should see him physically in your area, I would go get that restraining order. I would tell them that you're aware of his past, tell them you're aware that these are his behaviors, and now he's starting to do it to you. He started escalating this slowly. You're not taking any more chances with your safety and well-being. You need to get the restraining order. Because, I mean, this is who he is. He's already proved that he's done that.
That's what I thought too. But then I thought, the prison time and, all that kind of calmed him down. Plus he's old. He's 46. But I'm saying, he's not 26, where he's still really wild. So I was thinking maybe the prison had calmed him down.
I wouldn't assume that he's calmed down. I would assume that he's getting more covert, more stealth with what he's doing, that he's getting away with it better. I would not assume that, he's reformed in any way, especially if you're already seeing signs like this Red Bull thing.
Well, he's made a couple, not a couple, but I told you about the first night I was on the show with you, and then he called me the next day, and then after we went no contact, and he texted me. He said that that he loves me and that I would always have a friend in him if I wanted him to be, which I didn't respond. And I thought, what a joke, he was never a friend to me. And he didn't say, thank you for your friendship, thank you for everything you did to me, since I did so much and he did nothing. He said, you always have a friend in me if you want it. Because I told him, I don't know if you remember, but when he said, last thing he said to me was that I was old and ugly and aging badly. And I told him, I don't know if I told you, okay, the very next day, he wanted to get together again. I told him on the phone, I said, no, I don't want to see you. I said, you know what, I can never have sex with you again after that comment. Because, really, I mean, if I'm ugly, why do you want to have sex with me? And I'm self-conscious about having sex with someone who thinks I'm ugly. And I said, it's just a matter of time before you cheat on me anyway, because who wants an ugly girlfriend? So we went through all that. But, yeah, now the latest thing is the Red Bull. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no friend in him. That's a bunch of horse shit. That's just the words that he's using to say, to get you to.
He was never a friend to me. He was never a friend to me. No. It would have been better. That's how sick they are. It would have been more believable if he would have said, thank you for your friendship. I really appreciate it and would like to keep going, or something like that. But no, you have a friend in me. You were never my friend.
Right. Right. He's not a friend, not at all.
No.
Yeah. Like you said, the weather's getting nicer. He might find himself bored and, walking over that way. If that's the case, girl, I would definitely get that restraining order and don't hesitate. Like the minute you see his face there, or one of your neighbors said he was there, asking about you or something like that, then you even have a witness too. But I wouldn't hesitate if you see him there, because you can't prove the Red Bull thing. That's a shame. And that's how they play. But if he shows up and he has the balls to do that, I would definitely get that restraining order. I think in your case, it should be pretty easy because he has prior history of the same exact problems, restraining orders and having violated restraining orders and all that. Hopefully a judge would see that and take it pretty seriously versus, someone who had no priors. Sometimes it's hard to get a restraining order.
I was thinking that they ask, I've never done this before, so I was thinking they would ask, do I feel if my life is in danger? And I don't. Maybe I should, but I don't.
I would just say yes. I would say yes.
Just the irritation of him, and maybe he would just constantly just keep going till he just tries to wear me down, which he will never do, because I've learned so much and had so much time to think about this. He's so disgusting. No.
No, see, here's the thing, is that the Stockholm syndrome, right? The trauma bonding, and the requirements for the trauma bonding are that the victim or, the hostage feels that their life is in danger, whether it's physically or psychologically. And the reality is that these kinds of abusers will annihilate your sense of self. So yes, it does feel like he's a threat to your life, and he is a threat to your life. And I think sometimes, the system is just so blind. They think that abuse has to involve punches and bruises, and it's not like that. So, that's the language in the Stockholm syndrome. And you could probably recognize that you were in the trauma bond at some point, just like the rest of us, right? And so, yeah, that means there definitely was, a threat to your life. And I would not hesitate to say yes on that check mark.
Well, towards the end, he never actually hit me, but when he would get angry, he would raise his fist like he's going to hit me, like in that threat. And I thought, God, really? You hit women?
Yeah, I think you were really lucky. And again, if you should see him at all by your building, I would just go get that restraining order. I would tell them, I would check the box. Yes, I feel that my life is in danger.
Yeah, he has no business whatsoever here. He lives in another borough. He has to go through a lot of trouble to get here. It's not like he just ends up here. He has no business here.
Right. Yeah, I would say you have a really good case if that should happen. And you deserve to feel safe and at peace in your neighborhood where you live. That's aggressive, that's threatening, and it's not safe, for him to do that.
Well, I've even, the way I talked to you the past couple of weeks, and I told you how it's been winter time, and I sit in my house a lot, but I had to fight to get my inner peace back and just to feel safe in my house, and just starting to do that. And now, really, I want to go out, and now you're making me feel not safe outside.
Right.
I mean, giving me actual reasons, like I could have stuff in my head, and I'm looking around anyway, but now you're giving me reasons.
Right. Yeah, I would be careful, and I would create the protection order immediately if you see his face. I mean, better yet, if you can take a picture of him too. If he just happens to be there and you got your cell phone on you, you got like a smartphone or something.
I always have my phone. So take a picture of him?
I would, if you have a chance, if you're not like so flustered that like you can't function. Sometimes when I'm like under stress, I can't think like that. But if you would see him there, like say you're still inside and you see him sitting out there, I would just start, taking pictures. And then I don't know what kind of phone you have, but sometimes phones have this thing where you can create like a voice memo or something, like my iPhone, and you can even lock your screen. So, you could tuck it in a pocket or have it in your hand and it's still recording, and the reach is pretty good. And I would just if you see him outside before you leave, I would turn that thing on And I would just hold it as if you were like, doing something else, and just record the conversation, because maybe he says something to you. So, you want to be sure you say, get away from here, something like that. And then, he says something back. Now you have him on recording as well. So,
You know what he's going to say? I already know. He's going to say, I'm sorry, give me another chance, because that was the line before. Please give me another chance. Let me show you. Let me prove it to you. That's what he'll say. He'll beg and plead. But I'm not scared of him like that, because he never beat me or anything. Not that he wouldn't. He just didn't. But I would take pictures of him and say, look, yeah, I'm taking these pictures and I'm taking them to the police and I'm getting a restraining order. And that and stand back and says they are cowards anyway. If they're afraid of a fear of they might go to jail or something, that would make them stop.
yeah, I mean, I don't think you owe him much warning at this point, other than the fact that if he is there, the first thing I would say to make it real clear is, get away from me, get out of here, don't ever come back, something like that, to make your boundaries so very clear. It doesn't matter what he says back, because whatever he says back is still trying to convince you and manipulate you on that boundary that you set. And that boundary is like, get the fuck away, right? So,
and I can record it. My phone has video. And if I say what you just said, and he comes back with, please give me another chance, to start begging and pleading, that right there is, he's not listening to what I said. I said, don't come around my house.
He's not respecting your boundary. It doesn't matter what he says, because all you have to say is, get away, get out of here, get away from my house, don't ever come back. It doesn't matter what he says. He's trying to convince you. He's trying to manipulate you. He is aggressing at that point.
I'm saying this more is like showing it to the police that unless he says, okay, I'm sorry, and walks away, which is not going to happen. But if I say, get away from me, stay away from my house, and he says anything else, begs and pleads, even the police can see he's not listening to me.
Correct. And I would make
then
that
they can
boundary
look up his
so clear.
record.
What's that?
They can look up his record and
Correct.
he's done it before. Now, I don't know how many years ago this was, but I mean, it wasn't like 20 years or anything like that. Maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. I don't know how many years. So,
yeah, even so, when you go to file the restraining order, that should come up in their system. They should have all this under his name, So,
you know what? This is just my own thought. I bet if I went to the police and they looked up his records, I bet there'd be a whole bunch of things in there that I didn't know about.
that's possible.
I just had that feeling.
It's quite possible.
They told me about the felonies or whatever, about breaking a restraining order, and what comes before restraining order is stalking,
Mm-hmm.
And you said he was stalking too, almost.
Yeah, he has a history. And again, people don't change, right? Like, these people do not change their ways. Like, he's probably getting more clever in what he's doing, to avoid the consequences, the legal consequences or the public appearance consequences. So I would definitely be very careful and act immediately if you see anything like that, because you know where that's going to go.
Yeah. Well, it's been cold, so that's probably what kept him away. Now the weather's getting nice. And he can't get me. He can walk around behind the building, and I don't have air conditioning, so I keep my window up like it is now with my fan on. And like used to when, I was upstairs, so if he knocks, I can't hear him knocking on the door downstairs. He would come around the back of the building, he would yell to my window. So he might start doing that again, so.
In that case, I would videotape it as well. With your cell phone, I would video that. And then go immediately after he's gone, to get your restraining order.
Yeah.
Yeah, you deserve to have peace in your life. You deserve to have peace in your building, not feel threatened, just to walk outside of your home where this guy has no business. No business.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that in my heart. Now, before this, I may have thought, well, it's a public street. He has the right to be there. But now, I've learned so much, and I've gained even Like that's one thing I'm grateful for too. You know, I gained so much respect for myself that yes, I deserve to not be harassed. I deserve to
Right.
feel safe when I go out.
Right. Exactly. You're upgrading your self-respect, which means your boundaries are changing, which means how
You
you
don't even know. I'm upgrading everything. I'm
good.
upgrading my whole life.
Good. Let me see. I think someone might have had something to say about that. Let's see. People were somebody was mentioning how this narcissist would change again in the company of other people, but he liked to press your buttons. You used to feel humiliated and invisible to him. He had so many masks. Someone else said, sounds a lot like the complex PTSD. When I had to see my ex's mother, I got sick to my stomach. She was far worse than the ex. She created the dysfunction in him, but she was the most dysfunctional. And then someone said, I went to a fortune teller and she said his name, etc., and told me that he's my soulmate. I got so upset, and now I feel maybe she meant I was supposed to meet him in this life because he is by far the worst person that I have ever known. Wow. And then she also says, yeah, they learn it. They learn it. My ex's father is an overt narc. They find it very funny when people feel hurt. To them normal is dysfunctional. Yeah. Yeah, this is totally dysfunctional. You know, to this guy that you're talking about, it might be totally normal to stalk you, to show up at your place, because that's who he is and that's what he does, but that's not normal. It's totally dysfunctional. It's abusive and it's threatening. And, you know, you now understand that you have every right to feel safe where you live, that this guy has no business being there, despite the fact that it's a public sidewalk and all that. Doesn't matter. He doesn't live there. You live there. He knows you're living there. He's trying to get your attention. So,
Well, if I lived in like a house or a building like you could just walk in, I really probably, and I love my apartment. I absolutely love it. I've lived here for years. I would probably move.
right.
It would probably make me move.
I've heard so many of these situations. I mean, I've moved so many times. I've even sold a house because my neighbors were narcissists. It was a horrible situation. But you know, people do this all the time. Unfortunately, they leave. Like, thankfully, you have a secure building. You know,
Yeah,
hopefully,
I love my apartment, and if I
yeah,
had to move to live with him, I just would be so mad.
yeah. Hopefully, you don't have to move. You know, hopefully, the situation can be resolved without that, and the fact that like you do feel safer being in the secure building, but it could get to that point. You know, I know one woman who's selling her house that she has so many wonderful memories in, and, you know, but this guy won't leave her alone. Like, he's stalking her and it's not safe. And so
Well, what
unfortunately,
about the police? What are they doing?
she couldn't, I don't know if she tried, because I had advised her to get the protection order right away. And I don't know what happened after that. She didn't let me know that she got it. Maybe they didn't give it to her. Sometimes you can't get one for whatever reason. Like, you have a good situation, I think, because this guy has prior, you know, on his record, he has prior felonies of having broken protection orders. In her case, it might not have been like that. Maybe she got denied. Maybe she was terrified to try. I don't know what happened, but she ended up just putting her house up for sale just to get out of there. Because, you know, of course, the smear campaign, they live in the same small town. So then he went around and like smeared her name around town and everything too. Sometimes it gets to that point. Hopefully that's not the point for you. You know, hopefully it doesn't get to that. But you're right. For a lot of people, it does come to that. And yeah, it sucks. It's not fair to have to change your life because of this abusive asshole. But sometimes you have to cut your losses and make decisions like that. Just like leaving, you know, a job. Sometimes people love a job that they have and stuff, but then they end up having to leave because of a narc at work. And sometimes you just have to cut your losses just to have your peace of mind and your safety and your sanity back.
See, I've already done that. I gave so much, right? And I realized, you know, I'm not going to get any of it back. Cut my losses, forget it. It like you said, just get my peace and sanity back. That's all I cared about. So I did cut my losses with him, you know, and I had losses. You know, just
Right.
like the lady in the beginning of the show was saying, I don't know. She was saying how she was sleeping better or she was more tired. But
How
when
she
he
was
first
what?
left, I'm sorry,
You said how she was what?
either sleeping better or she was more tired. I'm not sure what she was saying.
She said she's sleeping better now without him.
Oh, well, when he first left, I was all night with the videos and the books and the thinking and the writing and trying to figure out what's going on. And then I have to go do things, you know. But then I wrote, you know, I'm tired just like I was tired with him, but only now I don't have losses, I have gains. I'm
Right.
tired, but I have something to show for it. You know, good things, not,
Right.
you know, losses, and not it being tired and staying up for no reason or for stupid reasons.
That's an excellent perspective. You're not being, exhausted from you're not being, what's the word? Prevented from sleeping and overexhausted from an abusive person. It's like sometimes you decide to stay up late and research things and learn things. And, that's like something to show for it. It changes who you are. It changes your awareness, your knowledge, your self-healing process. And that's a different situation than
Yeah,
being,
I'm over all that now. Now I have a regular sleeping pattern and everything, so I'm good with that.
yeah,
But
that's good.
I hope he's not starting something this summer because I really don't want to go through it.
You really what?
I don't want to go through it again. I'm done. I'm done with him.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know it's really nerve-wracking. It causes so much anxiety just thinking about the possibility of him being out there. Someone says here, I agree. I heard once someone that loves you will let you sleep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, they always have something to fight about.
What's that?
They always have something to fight about.
To
If
fight.
there's nothing to fight about, they look for something to fight about. Every day,
Right.
you know, there.
Yeah, this person says yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And I know, I know all this about what happened to me. I've read all these other stories, heard all these other people, and you know, I already know. And if he wants to come back, it's just so he can hurt me all over again. And if he tries to be nice to me, I know it's all a lie. I know it's fake, and it's just to hurt me worse than he did before. And he said all these kinds of things, and that's the funny thing. They're not stupid people. He's an intelligent person, and he can come up with insults and hurtful things to say that they just will cut you to the bone. It hurts so much, and I'm sure he's got a whole bunch of them he wants to say to me, and I don't want to give him a chance.
Right, because he's had like 7 months to come up with new material, right? So
Yeah.
someone says here, I got in trouble for the dog walking into the kitchen. Like I'm some sort of dog whisperer. It wasn't even my dog. Yeah, they'll find anything to fight with you about, to complain about you, to put you down for, to blame you for. Yeah, just there's no self-responsibility there. There's no self-accountability, and there never will be. And that's why, you got to let the hope die. You got to mourn the hope of what you hoped that was, but what
Well,
it's
that's the point too. I really, really need to be free because I'm working on getting a dog from the shelter. And I'm gonna have. I love animals. Oh, I really love animals, and I'm gonna have to walk him. At least, the very least, in the morning and at night.
right.
So I need to be free to go out with my dog.
Right.
You know, I can't be like, sorry, you can't go to the bathroom because he's out there. I need to be free.
Right. Exactly. Are you getting a big dog?
I think a medium size. When I have a small apartment, but I don't like the little yappy. I mean, I like all dogs, but I don't want like a little chihuahua. I think that the bigger dogs are more like friendlier, and I like to play around with dogs. So.
Yeah, you would be surprised too how much peace of mind a dog brings. I found this with my dog. She's little. She's only 18 pounds. She's not that big. But if there's any weird noise in the hallway or somebody accidentally touches my door when they're walking down the hallway, she's up instantly growling. And I'm like, good girl. And I always reward her when she does that, because I want her to know that's her job. Her primary job is the protection, right? And like, you know, she's so in tune with me too. And it's never happened with her. But when I was dog sitting two other dogs many years ago, one was like a pit bull mix, and I was dog sitting. It wasn't even my dog. She was still loyal enough to me that we went to the dog park, and they were off leash, the two dogs. They were off in the bushes, and I saw this guy coming with his dog, and instantly I had that visceral sensation of like, oh God, this is not a good person. And I was like already heading toward him, and I thought, but before I could even finish the thought, I was thinking, you know, what if something happens? How quickly would Charlotte get here? And before I could even finish that thought, she was at my side. Her hair was up. She was like squaring her shoulders. Like, she knew. She was in tune with me. And I didn't even raise that dog. I'd been with her for a few months, but she was in tune with my emotions. So that's a great thing about having a dog. You're out there walking that dog. If you suddenly panic and get afraid, that dog is going to feel that. And that dog is going to go on the aggressive to any other threat that's around you, you know, even if it's not a real big dog. And sometimes people are really afraid of dogs, even little dogs, because dogs bite, you know, and nobody really wants to get bitten. Yeah. So I'm glad you're thinking about getting a dog, and I wouldn't be afraid. You know, it's a shame, you know, to have to feel this fear of going outside, but the dog will also add a lot of security and feeling of being protected. You know, the emotional support too of having that dog there is really amazing. Someone else chimed in here about dogs. She said, dogs are awesome. I loved my pups. I mean, his pups. Another way he manipulated me. He acted like they were ours, and then he would go, well, I bought them. He ended up with the pups, even though I put a lot of time and energy into them. It was a hard loss, but I took the cat. My ex always hated cats, probably because they don't obsess over people.
Yes, I know it. You know what? When we were together, yeah, I've been thinking about it. I wanted a dog for a long time. And he said a guy at work had a dog, and his wife was pregnant, and was the dog was bothering her, allergic to the dog or something. And he said, I want to give it to you. And I told him, I actually said this. I said, no. I said, you're just going to use the dog to hurt me. I said, you're going to give it to me and watch me bond with it and get close to it, and then you're going to take it away and I'll never see it again. I said, you don't know how bad that would hurt. I mean, I said, you do know, how bad that would hurt me. I said, I'm not going to let you do that to me.
Yeah, good job. Get your own dog.
We had that. I wouldn't even know that to say that. But I knew that it would, you know, that was something he would use to hurt me.
Right. Right. Someone says, yeah, it's awful. He would send me pictures of our pups when we were breaking up to torture me. Wow.
Yeah, that's horrible. Oh,
that's really horrible. You know, people do this with kids too. They use the kids as pawns, and that's also just a tragedy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
What else? Anything else? Any other questions?
I don't know. I really just called to listen. There were so many people at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, someone says, I have a question about the exes of the narc. I knew everything about them. I don't think that's right. Correct. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's a he, the narcissist, right? Yes. So he was probably, you know, telling you about, you know, everything they did wrong at the beginning. Like he was idealizing you and saying, oh, you're so much better than my exes who did this. But then when he flipped that and then you became the bad guy, he was devaluing you. Then it was like, oh, the exes they were so amazing. And this one did this in bed and that one did this, you know, cooked this way or did this thing. And then they start revealing like all this, like just really detailed information. And it's a form of triangulation. You know, it's meant to manufacture jealousy and other emotions. Yes, it was like, oh my God, why are you telling me this? Yeah, it was meant to hurt you. It was meant to make you feel jealous and insecure. It could be used sometimes to indirectly get you to modify your behavior, to get you to feel self-conscious so that you would then do the behavior that he wanted you to do because so-and-so did this behavior. They may or may not have.
See, that's what my ex used to say. He said, you're just like my ex-girlfriend. Every time, if I got angry about something, you sound just like my ex-girlfriend. Well, yeah. Women are women. If you do something stupid, most women are going to have the same reaction.
Most people are going to have the same reaction. I don't think guys like hearing about that either. Someone says here, he always kept their numbers in his phone. He would text them and say, I miss you. Like he was making sure he still had supply. It was gross. I never want to be that ex that buys into that shit. Yeah, good girl. You don't want to be that ex. And yeah, that's not okay. I mean, keeping the numbers, first of all, why? But even beyond that, texting them saying that he missed them. Yeah, he was definitely trying to keep them in the lobby, make sure that they were there as supply, should his supply with you run out or should he need extra supply. But yeah, it's so common, this behavior.
I read that they triangulate like that, the way she's saying, because that keeps you striving for first place in their heart.
Yep.
And they like to watch that.
Exactly.
I guess when you're in love with them, I think you do that. But now, you miss her, go. Go be with her.
Yeah, now looking back, it's like, man, why did that even bother me? I should have been like, fine, just go have them, I don't want you. But it triggers something in you. And what it does is it triggers an insecurity, it triggers a jealousy, and it triggers this desire then, like you said, to compete, to be like his number one or her number one, priority or love or whatever. And
yeah, when you're in it and you're in love with them, but once you're out, that's the beauty of him being such a horrible person is that I've had boyfriends before and they felt with somebody else and I felt jealousy about that. There is no jealousy here, and I feel sorry for the next one he gets with.
Right. Yeah, once you're out enough that you're like, oh, I'm so grateful I'm not with him or her anymore. By that point, then it's like you don't want anything to do with that. But like you said, when you're in it, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, because by that point you have so much invested that it's like you feel like it's such a loss if you were to lose it, even though later you look back and you're like, oh man, what was I thinking? I would lose him 100 times over. Someone says he changed the names of his exes in his phone as men's names. You're not the first person I heard that say that. I couldn't believe I still hung on even after I found out. He promised me he was just joking. I was confused by it, and I still honestly am. Yeah, that's sick. Good to know I'm not alone. Yeah, I've heard this story numerous times where they put a fake name in their phone number, so you think that they're texting one of their guy friends or whatever, and that's really sick. And then of course the gaslighting, where he's trying to make you feel like that didn't happen, or he was just joking. So he's couching it, making it seem light. And yeah, you were confused by it because that was really messed up. And that's not normal. And that's what a really manipulative, deceiving person does, and that's why all victims feel so confused, because it's like what's really happening versus what you're expecting or hoping or wanting to happen. And they're just so diametrically opposed. It's very confusing. Yeah, you're not alone.
It's so good now. I don't have to wait on him. He tells me he's going to be here at a certain time, and he's just late. And then I have to, this is an excuse that I know is a lie, but I can't prove it. And then I'm all upset. I don't have to go through that anymore.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, if anybody has any other questions, you want to let me know. And if not, then I'll wrap up the session for today and then get the video processed and uploaded. Sounds good. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Okay. It was a great chat. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you all so much. And I really appreciate you sharing and asking your questions. Oh, someone says here, I found that also when we were together, he would lie about who rang him, and also blocked numbers would ring him. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're welcome. All right. Well, thank you so much all for participating in tonight's session. I'm sending you all a big hug, and I hope to see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.